Good afternoon. Just give it a minute for people to join. Welcome.
Hi, Tessa.
Hello. Great, nice to see everyone. I'm going to share my screen now. Looking good. So yes, good afternoon all. Thanks for joining us. My name is Tess Blades. I'm a project manager at Libraries Connected, and I had the pleasure of managing the Arts Council England funded Microgrants programme for libraries, which is in its final stages now. And this is the last in a series of webinars sharing learning from the programme. So just a bit of background. The programme was funded by the Arts Council England. Libraries could bid for between £1,000 and £5,000 to deliver projects across universal library offers. This was open to public, school library services and prison library services delivered by the Public Library Service within England. There were 3 funding rounds starting sort of end of 2024 and to mid 2025, and funded projects were asked to deliver activity within 6 months of funding being awarded, and in total £212,000 was awarded. Here are some high-level stats about the applications. We received a total of 127 applications and funded 50 proposals. I'm happy to share these slides following the session for you to have a closer look at these stats. But on the right here, it also shows the types of library service that applied and their success rates. We did our best to be flexible and change the application process based on feedback throughout. For example, we updated the application questions to include a high-level breakdown of spend based on feedback from the review panel to help them assess the proposals. And the application window was adjusted to be open for a set period of time rather than once a certain amount of funding was applied for. Round 3 was therefore open for a 2-week period, and this increased the number of applications significantly. Excuse me. If all of those rounds had been open for that 2-week period, that number of applications would have been much higher. The interest was definitely there. So I thought I'd just quickly revisit the project outcomes that we set out at the beginning of the project. So number 1 was skills and confidence development, enhancing library staff skills and confidence in applying for funding. Number 2, initiative advancement, so enabling library services to develop larger initiatives, so providing for that data collection, consultation, to develop a case for a bigger project or pilot something or for another funding bid. Number 3, fair distribution, so ensuring microgrants were fairly distributed geographically and across the universal library offers. Also thinking about the types of library service, such as prison and school library services. And finally, number 4, effective grant delivery model. So developing and testing a grant delivery model for potential use, reuse in the future that libraries find easy to navigate and Libraries Connected can administer efficiently. So I can give some sort of progress updates on each of those outcomes. So for skills and confidence development, we've held these webinars at intervals throughout the programme, and 52% of webinar attendees reported increased or maintained confidence in bid writing following those webinars. 96% rated the webinar content good or excellent, and we had separately, we had a review panel and reviewers who scored the proposals. An evaluation of these reviewers showed an average confidence of reviewing proposals rose from 3 to 4 on a 5-point scale. Staff also reported greater understanding of sort of structuring proposals, using data to evidence need, and aligning with local priorities. it was great to see staff with no prior experience writing applications and being successful. There were comments in the evaluation so far saying that hearing from library services that had previously been funded, and also feedback from review panel members in those webinars was really useful. Reviewers also reported that they had been sort of mentoring colleagues in bid writing following their involvement in the review panel and reviewing. Outcome 2, initiative advancement. So many funded projects used the microgrants as a foundation for future work. We are lucky to have Lancashire and Lewisham libraries here today to talk more about some examples there. Several library services reported that they have applied for or plan to apply for additional funding following their project proposals. So, for instance, Arts Council project grants. The application process also acted as a catalyst for sort of generating ideas, expanding project scope and ambition, building new partnerships, so looking to the community of who they might work with to deliver a project, and clarifying the strategy and evaluation plans of the library service. Outcome 3, fair distribution. So we did some targeted outreach after rounds 1 and 2 to improve the geographic participation in those areas that were underrepresented in those rounds. As well as types of library service. So we attended regional meetings to talk about the programme, and the review panel and reviewers had representation across the eligible library service, so school library services and prison library service run by the public library. In the end, all regions were represented in applications, which is great to see, and this little pie chart on the right here shows that there was a broad spread across the universal offers. In terms of fair distribution, so we had an idea that we would be able to the proposals would be scored, and then we would look at what areas had fewer applications, but we actually, on advice of the project board and due to time constraints of the review panel, we moved to merit-only assessment. So those proposals with the highest scores were those which were funded. Outcome 4, effective grant delivery model. So we used an online system called Apply to manage the applications, and it was really intuitive system for libraries connected to use, and the applicants also say that the process, they rated 4.2 out of 5 overall, and the portal 4.5 out of 5 for usability. So that's great to see that worked for libraries applying as well. I mentioned the fixed 2-week window, and that kind of really increased the number of applications from round 1. And we were able to provide support to applicants who weren't sure where to go with their proposal, and so it was great to see that was well received too. So as I mentioned, I'm working on the final evaluation at the moment, and I just pulled out a few themes that are emerging. So creativity and well-being, that's the most frequent theme and is central to so many of the projects. Staff upskilling and learning skills and confidence, over 90 sort of combined mentions so far, showing like really strong sector-wide development there. Community engagement and participation and community cohesion, so it really highlights libraries' role in sort of strengthening local connections and pride in place. Sustainability and funding and further funding bids. So there's lots of evidence of forward planning and longer term thinking, taking these projects further. Partnerships and long-term connection with delivery partners is just recurring across so many of the projects. So some other sort of emerging focus areas are like embedding that funded activity into the core offer. So having had the funding to kind of develop what they had put in their proposal, then kind of looking at how that might work ongoing without further funding, and greater emphasis on targeted outreach and reaching new audiences. So yeah, just to say, the final evaluation report is underway, and just a huge thank you to Arts Council England for funding the programme, and thanks also to review panel members, reviewers, project board members, and participating library services, and everyone who applied. So that's enough from me. We want to hear from the library services that were funded and what they've managed to achieve. And first up, we have Sharon Trail from Newcastle Libraries. Newcastle Libraries were actually successful across all 3 rounds, and each one was written by a different staff member and a completely different project. So I'm just really interested to hear how you're kind of generating that culture of innovation and service development, because it's obviously working. Love to hear about it. Hi, Sharon.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation, and as Tessa mentioned, we were successful in all 3 microgrants. So my name's Sharon Trail, and I manage the community hubs and libraries within Newcastle, where we have 14 locations. The microgrants that I just want to touch on, give you a brief description, is pop-up library, that was the first, community bookshelves, and the third was neurodivergent friendly library. So the first application was the Microgrant 1 pop-up library, and this was submitted by Dan Kinnair, our service development manager. And this was at a time where we had a location in Blakelaw Library. Sorry, our Blakelaw Library was in a community centre, and the centre manager wanted to develop that and charge us really for being on site. And we had support from local councillors to relocate to a leisure complex. And so the funding came at the right time, really, where we wanted to locate. We were in a cafe area within a leisure complex, and we used the microgrant to buy what you can see on the screen there, all of the kit. So our vision was to be working alongside partners and have a compact library where we could take anywhere. So this was when the pop-up library idea started to really take shape. I've got just a little clip, hopefully. Actually, I might have to reshare for the sound. So if you just bear with me a second. I've learned something new today, how to share with sound. Sorry, I'll just... So I've just got a very short clip. So as you can see, the kit is very mobile. This map just shows our locations, the branch locations, and the red is where we've got the pop-up library. So we started off at Blakelaw Library, and now we deliver in a church hall and a family hub, both complementing our library service as is now. We've also taken the equipment with us to events, and partners are tagging along now, so it's more of a pop-up hub, if you like. So it's really taken shape. We've had a request to, well, there was a request for a library in one of a recent estate that's just been built, and this is a way of taking our pop-up to their community centre that they have to see whether or not we can be established in that location. We've also been contacted by local hospitals, so that's something else that we're exploring. So the microgrant really has helped us to take shape this idea and to go out into the heart of the community. There's just a few stats here. So we've had 300 visits. We haven't really been doing this for very long. The issues we have from there are really good, and we've got 6 staff members within the group. So what we've done, we've got a group of staff who focus on the pop-up library, and as we move from location to location, we naturally tailor the stock for that audience, which can be a challenge at times. We've got to be very organised. We're using our current resource of staff in our current delivery van, so we do have limitations which are part of the challenges, but we are trying to entice customers to come in using, you know, the events that we have, the resources that we have, the Lego clubs, in the holidays, the children's activities. So that is a challenge for us, using our existing resource, using our existing transport that we use for deliveries in our library at home, and refreshing the stock selection. But it is becoming really popular. But how we can push that, delivering the library service that we've got in our 14 locations already established, I don't know, but this is becoming quite unique, I think, to our service, and we've received a lot of inquiries from other libraries about how we set it up and the equipment that we're using, which is a real positive. So just moving on to our second microgrant, this is the West End Community Bookshelves project, and this was submitted by Tony Ford, one of our specialists for reading, and the idea she had was linked to our Library of Sanctuary work and an inquiry that we received regarding our world language stock and how we could develop that. So Tony has got a real passion for this area of work, and she's worked really hard to get us the Library of Sanctuary status and recreditation. So the idea was to build better connections around the library in the west of the city, including schools of sanctuary in this area, and to develop a community bookshelf of titles featuring diverse characters and stories, and to improve our world language collection. And Tony wanted to start a new practice English group at West End Library. We've already got a really well established one in City Library, to the point where every week now we see 50 people coming in, and this is a session where they come along, they chat with volunteers and staff, and they learn English through that social conversation, and we supply hot drinks and refreshments. We also wanted to use the bookshelves to start discussions about race, culture, and inclusivity during regular class visits and other outreach events. So Tony organised consultation and used as many models as possible, including a customer survey that was available online. Included was also interactive workshops with children, and informal discussions during community drop-ins and ESOL sessions. It was at this point that Tony, the royal we, bought picture books with diverse main characters and comics for children aged 7 to 12. Books were bought specifically to help a parent pass on their mother tongue of Kurdish to their daughter, who was being raised and schooled within the UK. And Tony also bought books for English learners to support the practice English sessions, which are really developing. There was a number of challenges faced. Younger readers are only aware of titles they've already encountered in school or within the library. So they needed to be presented with new titles. There was difficulty in accessing new world language stock, as the suppliers and publishers are limited in what they have to offer. and the consultation is still ongoing and is time consuming as Tony is building the trust and the relationships with customers. But it's an excellent piece of work, and again, thanks to the microgrant that we received. The third microgrant, this was submitted by one of our library and information officers, Patrick. We already offer a quiet hour within our locations and dedicated corners for customers to use. And we have a new staff working group and wanted to enhance our offer to customers. And this project has 3 strands: organising the book collection, buying fidget bags and boxes, and the use of our spaces. So the book collection uses both physical and digital stock. Patrick worked on the book list with staff from Newcastle University, parents from the Neurodivergent Children Group and the wider council worker group. The list was then published on our online catalogue called Discover, and the QR code, as you can see on the screen, was created to help to add to our display to take customers direct to our online collection. So alongside this, Patrick organised online consultation, and the online was then organised after trialling unsuccessful face-to-face. This was shared with relevant organisations, including North East Autism Society, Newcastle City Council Neurodivergent Worker Group, and Difference North East. And the questions included what fidget toys people used and why, which included noise, texture, movement, providing a calm feeling and focus. And this provided an idea of what to buy. Tangle was the favourite fidget toy after the consultation, and the response was that 68% would borrow these items while visiting the library. The challenge that we have is around the quiet sensory spaces that Patrick wanted to introduce. Patrick wanted to purchase tents and dens, which is impossible to test. So he's reached out to support organisations looking for recommendations. And we will be testing this at our event in December. It's a neurodivergent friendly film screening with Daydream Cinema. This was scheduled for November, but has been delayed. So it is now organised for December. I wasn't familiar myself with this, and apparently it's a cinema which isn't dark. There's lots of things to occupy people who are in attendance. There's doodling, there's bean bags, and the sound's not at a loud volume, and there's breakout and quiet spaces available as well. We have ordered the fidget toys, but they're out of stock. So I think because of the popularity of these, which is why they're out of stock. So at the moment, the challenge is we are still to evaluate the project. We're nearly there, but with delays throughout the project, we haven't done the evaluation yet, so that's still to come. I was asked about our success of all 3 grants and how we did it, which I found a really difficult question to answer. And I've been reflecting over the past couple of years, and there's been a lot of changes from the management team right down through all staff levels. So a lot of movement and a lot of promotions. And as a team and a council, we have a can-do attitude and encourage ideas from staff. There's a lot of enthusiasm and willingness to apply for funds to develop the service. And as a manager, I do support and encourage ideas. We try things. If they don't work, then we try something else and learn from the results. We've lost a lot of knowledge within the service, but our aim is to grow our own, to retain our staff by offering as much training and support as we can, to help develop our staff and enjoy their career with us, which I feel is really important. And I do feel that now we are starting to see this within our worker groups. So that's my answer to that really difficult question, and I'm really pleased and thankful of the success in the 3 microgrants and the hard work of the 3 members of staff who are leading these projects, and thankful, for giving this opportunity.
Amazing. Thank you, Sharon. I do think there's something in that kind of creating that safe environment for, innovation and being able to test things out and without fear of failure. It's just a trial. So thank you so much for sharing. If you have any questions for Sharon, feel free to put them in the Q&A, which is available. We should have some time for questions at the end, but if not, we'll make sure we get those answers to you. Next up, we have Laura Elliott, who is here to talk about the Vox Block player pilot that was funded through Microgrants at Lewisham Library.
Hi, everybody. Let me just share my screen. Can you see that okay? Yeah, brilliant. Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Laura Elliott, and I'm the Reader Services Librarian for Lewisham Libraries. And today I'm going to talk about our exciting new collection of VoxBlock screen-free audiobook players for children. So VoxBlock players are fun, intuitive, screen-free and internet-free audiobook devices designed for children aged 3 to 12. They are really easy to use. There's just kind of a cartridge that plops on top of the player. It's magnetic. My daughter is 3.5 and she loves them. In winter last year, we were awarded £5,000 through the first round of Libraries Connected and Arts Council England Microgrant scheme. We used this funding to buy 50 VoxBlock players, 250 audiobooks, and a collection of corresponding print books to promote reading along, which were all completely free for people to borrow for 2 weeks at a time. We piloted the project in one location initially in Catford Library, but it has been so successful, we have bought more players and expanded it out to Deptford now, and we are actually considering more library branches across the borough. Altogether, we've spent about £6,500 on 80 players and 350 audiobooks. I'm sure you're all already familiar with this information, but it's just worth reiterating the significant decline in children's reading for pleasure, as reported on by the National Literacy Trust. Only 1 in 3 children say they enjoy reading in their free time, and only 1 in 5 read daily. But 2 in 5 children said that audiobooks had gotten them more interested in reading books, and it was this rise in interest in audio that we wanted to explore further with the VoxBlock collection. The National Literacy Trust have also undertaken research into the positive impact of audio on enhancing literacy, building confidence and boosting language skills, especially for reluctant readers and non-native English speakers. Audiobooks help to foster a love of stories, improve comprehension and contribute to mental well-being and emotional intelligence. So this made me think that a VoxBlock collection could be particularly effective in Lewisham, as we have a high number of families for whom English is not their first language. We also have one of the highest rates of deprivation in England, ranked 7th most deprived borough in London, which means that this kind of device may not be affordable for many families. We also support many families who lack basic digital literacy skills as well as access to the internet at home. Whilst we do offer a range of e-audiobooks for children via Libby and BorrowBox, the VoxBlock players are highly accessible in any home environment without relying on internet access or expensive devices to play through. My daughter, I can hear her crying. Lewisham is the first public library service to offer VoxBlock players for loan. They've previously partnered with school libraries and retailers only, so through this project we've laid some of the groundwork for them moving into this sector more broadly. Actually, this caused a setback early in the project as we didn't realise that VoxBlock didn't have any mark records for their audiobooks, and we had to connect them with BDS to create catalogue records for their entire back catalogue so that we could import them. And this delayed the launch of the collection in our libraries, but it does mean the acquisition process is more streamlined now on both sides. The unique format of VoxBlock appeals to children and parents alike and is a really effective way of enticing children into reading. We barely have to promote the players, we do obviously, but we just put them on display in our libraries and people pick them up and they get it straight away. But we do like to use them to start conversations about reading in general and hook people into broader library services. So in the picture, you can see a table set up near the help desk in Deptford with the Summer Reading Challenge activities and the VoxBlock player alongside. Linking into the Summer Reading Challenge was a really great way to promote them and has made children more aware of audio as a legitimate option for Summer Reading Challenge achievements and expanded their awareness of the range of collections we offer in general. VoxBlock have also been particularly effective in attracting attention at outreach events, for example, local festivals and fun days where we have a library stand. People see them and want to play with them, and then immediately you have an interaction or a connection to build on. Since launching in March, the VoxBlock players and audiobooks have issued really well. We've had over 850 issues of the audiobooks and nearly 300 of the players. Feedback from staff and users has been overwhelmingly positive as well. We've been inviting feedback via a form that we hand out on issue and return. And so far, every respondent has reported using the VoxBlock player daily, which is amazing considering the National Literacy Trust report. And this is across a range of ages for both shared and independent reading. Most significantly, 93% of users say it has increased their enjoyment of reading. I particularly like this comment on the slide. I'll just read it out. My daughter is not yet an independent reader, so this has been a really great way for her to independently access literature that she otherwise wouldn't have been able to. While it doesn't help her improve her reading skills, she can still enhance her vocabulary and lose herself in a good book, letting the words take her to an imaginary space. It definitely also decreased her demand for screens. Thank you. There was also an unexpected result of taking on this pilot project, which is that the Home Library Service have started taking them out on their rounds and have had quite positive take-up there, which is interesting because VoxBlock are releasing a range of adult audiobooks soon, so we might explore this further together. Moving forward, we basically want to build on what we've learned about engagement so far, excuse me, to focus on more targeted outreach, specifically with parents and carers who are less comfortable with reading aloud or who speak languages other than English. We want to link in with the Making It Real programme that connects library staff with parents and carers of nursery-age children and be more proactive in delivering hands-on confidence-building workshops that centre around VoxBlock or that utilise them in some way. Next year, we're planning to promote audio specifically as part of the National Year of Reading, and the VoxBlock collection will be a large part of that. We've also connected with council services such as fostering who are keen to work with us. And finally, we want to explore more creative forms of feedback, focusing on children's perceptions and experiences of audio stories. That's the end of my presentation. Thank you for listening. I'm obviously happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Laura. Like, you must feel so proud to have been the first library service, and you've kind of paved the way for other people to follow in your footsteps.
Yeah, it's been really positive.
Definitely. There is a question. I'll go to, since it's so topical. And there is a question here. Do you take a deposit or anything regarding the VoxBlock players?
No, I think that is one of the things that getting the micro grant kind of gave us the freedom or the flexibility to be a bit more relaxed around it. So it was a bit like, oh, if they go missing or if they get damaged, then that's fine because it was funded. But actually, they have mostly come back and they haven't been damaged. They seem quite indestructible.
Yeah, it's great to have that freedom to kind of test it out, and it turns out they come back, no problems.
Yeah.
There is another question I'll just ask quickly. Was there a reason for choosing VoxBlock rather than Yoto or any other?
So I did originally write the grant proposal around Yoto, and they did initially seem to be keen, but then they became completely unresponsive. So I actually had to change the grant proposal to a different supplier, and VoxBlock are based in Scotland, and they're a smaller company, and they were just really keen, and they've been really great to collaborate with. So actually, I think to be honest, that VoxBlock are a more accessible kind of player than Yoto, so I think it's worked out for the best, to be honest.
Excellent, thank you. Thanks for answering the question. So next up we have John from Lancashire Libraries to talk about the Young Onset Dementia Initiative.
Hi, thank you, Tess. Yeah, I'm John. I'm the Bibliotherapy and Wellbeing Officer with Lancashire County Council. I'm not sharing my screen today. I thought I'd just go sort of a cappella and just do you can all look at me and hear my wonderful voice, which I'm sure you'll all be thrilled about. So as Tess said, our project looked at a group for people with young onset dementia. And I just want to roll back to a bit about how the group came about to sort of understand how the microgrant really worked for us as an organisation and really came up when we needed it. So I'm sure you're all aware that the Reading Well for Dementia scheme was relaunched in May 2024. And during that time, I was attending several events to promote the new collection, the Refresh collection. And at one such event, I met up with the local services manager for the Alzheimer's Society. I shouldn't have been surprised. They did organise the event, but there she was, and we ended up having a really good discussion about the Reading Well collections and the sort of wider universal health offer that we have in Lancashire Libraries. And as we were discussing what we offered in libraries, I sort of asked her, are there any gaps in provision in Lancashire for people with dementia? And she highlighted that there was a real gap in provision around young onset dementia, and that being defined as people under 65 who have dementia. And the Alzheimer's Society had been corresponding and working with groups of people and the caregivers who were all under 65. And they didn't feel like there was anywhere they could go in a group setting to speak to other people in the same position, to get the support and advice, and that the other groups that were available tended towards older people, tended to focus on sort of reminiscence and what maybe had been lost in memories, whereas the young onset group really wanted an idea of how they could still be supported in work, how they could support the families, how they could, speak to the children and really get the support that they needed for their age group. And I said, you know what? Leave it with me. I said it really confidently with the plan that something would come up whereby I would be able to offer them some support. Then the microgrants projects came along, and I couldn't think of a more deserving group that I really wanted to support. And working with colleagues internally and from the Alzheimer's Society, we put together a proposal that was sent off to senior leaders in Lancashire, along with lots of other proposals in Lancashire. There were other people who had written bids, but they decided that they thought that this one was the one that we should take forward as a county. So we submitted the bid, and we were successful in getting £4,000 to get this group started. And once we had that, we sort of looked at the Alzheimer's Society and thought, how's this going to run? And we looked at staffing levels, and we decided that a monthly group would be the best way forward, which is what we put in the proposal. So the Alzheimer's Society already had contacts for people who they thought might be interested in the group, but we wanted to make sure that this group was available for as many people as possible. So we're quite fortunate that we have really good links with our public health teams, with our NHS colleagues. We've got different routes into there, so we advertised that as far and as wide as we could. And then we got going with our first session. We had to decide what we were going to do. And it was interesting because we really wanted the group to be self-led. We wanted the attendees to be able to say, this is what we need support with, and we will go from there and we'll find out how we can support you. But of course, with that first session, we didn't want to have nothing planned, because you end up with a number of people in a room and no plan. It can be a really, really awkward first session. So we started thinking about those initial preparations, and as a library service, we ordered additional copies of those Reading Well for Dementia books so that they could be available during the session. And we decided that the Alzheimer's Society would carry out the majority of the work in those sessions, but they would be supported by our library staff. Now, all our library staff are already have gone through the Dementia Friends training, but we wanted to provide them with some additional training on top of that to make sure that they were comfortable in those sessions, that they could support people as far as possible. So we worked with the Alzheimer's Society to prepare a bespoke training session for the frontline assistants who would be supported in there, and myself that went along. And we delivered that to staff, and that was really useful. I think it really boosted staff confidence in supporting the group. And yeah, it came up to the date of the first session, and we'd decided that first session we were going to have an initial introduction and a bit of a chat where people would start to get to know each other a little bit. But then we would have a gentle yoga session to end the session, which could be adapted for people to either do in a chair as a chair-based yoga session, or there will be mats available. We're quite lucky in that we have some very large library spaces that we can adapt to mat or chair. And at that first session, we wanted to get an overview of, how people had arrived at the session, what their diagnosis journey had been, and also what they were looking to get from the session. So we sort of crossed our fingers and waited for that first session to start. And on the day, we had 11 people with young onset dementia attend along with their carers. And the feedback was overwhelmingly positive. We actually, everybody got involved with the yoga, which was really nice to see at different levels. And for me, it was nice to spend 15 minutes lying on a mat, meditating, which is always a great way to spend my time. We asked in there, what are the main obstacles to attending these sessions? And a few challenges came up, and I'll talk a little bit more of them as we sort of come up as we go along. But one was logistical. We'd had people, because of the lack of groups in Lancashire, taking free buses to get to the session, which is a challenge, but clearly shows that there was a need for that group in the area. So from that session, we planned the next few sessions, and based on feedback from the attendees, we had a mix of activities. So they wanted some Tai Chi, Ottoman arts, African drumming, and even some belly dancing, which was interesting. And the next couple of sessions ran really, really well. We didn't get everybody attending. We sort of had between 6 and 10 people attending sessions on average. And they weren't all the same people from the first session. We had some people dropping in and dropping out. And I guess the question is, did it all run smoothly? And it kind of didn't. After the first few sessions, we noticed the numbers reducing slightly. And it culminated in one session, actually, we had nobody turn up at all. And we thought that was strange, seeing as that so many people had put down that they wanted this group and they'd attended previous sessions. So the Alzheimer's Society got in contact with everyone to see why they hadn't been in that session. And it turned out this is one of the challenges with the group and with the wider group as well, of people that had a couple of people that had hospital appointments. Some had work and they couldn't get out of work because they were still in employment. Others had childcare commitments, and ironically, and the couple who said this had actually forgotten that the session was on, and they do remind me of that at every session going on. And I think that particularly highlights the challenges of working with people with young onset dementia in particular, that they can have some additional commitments that aren't necessarily as relevant to older people with dementia. However, we weren't going to be deterred. So we sat down with the Alzheimer's Society, sort of reviewed all the feedback that we'd had from the participants, and we actually found that there was a better library in terms of logistically that we could deliver these sessions from that would actually be much easier to get through for the majority of participants. So we actually relaunched the group at Burnley Library, and that has been so far a fantastic success again. We regularly have 12 to 15 people attending. And interestingly, the last session, even though the group's been running and these participants have met, was they really wanted a getting to know you session where they talked about their journey, how they got where they are. And I think it was very emotional to hear people opening up about the challenges that they're facing and the difficulties that they've had initially in getting a diagnosis and finding out, you know, what the symptoms they were experiencing, what was the cause. And I had a lot of people who'd been pushed down, sort of doctors saying it's menopause, or, you know, it's just general forgetting, it's nothing to worry about. And it's taken some time for them to get where they are. But I will say that the people with young onset dementia, they've been so positive in the groups and so really life affirming in there. It's been wonderful to be in those sessions. And I think actually it's the people who care for them that have actually been the ones who have struggled more. And I think this group as well has given them the space to speak to other carers and family members and just get some support, get advice, not to feel like they are alone, that they can reach out. And, you know, some of these have started going on different trips together outside of this group, that they've started to form friendships. And I think that's one of the big things that we've taken from this project, is that it's built a real community of people. The sad thing for me is, because of this work, we have gone on to gain additional funding for our projects, and some of that has been internal through our development funds. We've got some funding coming through from public health, and we're also looking at seeing what we can get from the NHS, the ICB, on their new dementia strategy, which has actually strengthened some of the partnerships working that we've been doing anyway, and has sadly led to me now being on every ICB strategy panel that they're currently running in Lancashire, to see how libraries and cultural services in general can help the NHS and the ICBs meet the 10-year plan. So it's caused me a mountain of paperwork and hours and hours and hours of reading of the NHS 10-year plan. However, for this group, it's been worth it, because it's been so positive. And we are so lucky, as I say, that we've got these venues that can host these events. We're currently about to reopen a music room at Burnley Library, which the group is going to run from once a month. They're going to have sole access to that music room, and they're really looking forward to it. And we've got Christmas wreath making coming up at the end of this month. So it's all been really, really positive. And without that initial funding, it wouldn't have got off the ground, or it might have taken longer to get off the ground, because it's certainly something that I really had strong opinions on. So I just wanted to thank everybody involved for the funding, and it's been great. And if you do have any questions, I'll leave my email in the chat, and feel free to get in touch. Thank you.
Thank you, John. It's just wonderful to hear it kind of go from inception to sort of this ongoing cohesive group of, you know, members and carers. So thank you so much for sharing. Next up, we have Alison from Arts Council England for any reflections, highlights, further opportunities from your end.
Thank you, Tess. Right, let me just share my screen. 1 second. Sorry, I have to talk through all my instructions. There we go. Right. Okay. Right. Thank you. I've really enjoyed. I've lost in all the presentations that I've just heard, so I'm a bit. Yeah, I now have to talk. But thank you to Sharon, Laura, and John for those fabulous hearing about your projects. They really are amazing. I'm not going to speak for long today. I'm just going to go over what some of the key takeaways for us at Arts Council have been with this funding. Then I'll talk a little bit how we're going to look at the impact of the programme, and then we'll quickly signpost to National Lottery project grants. So for us, what has stood out for us over these past 12 months? Well, Simply put, I'd say the innovation, as you can see from the three that we've heard about today. We really think that the light touch, streamlined approach of the programme has really allowed libraries to innovate. It's given them space to experiment. And we can see this in the wide range of projects that focus on a whole host of themes such as digital inclusion, dementia support, heritage, early years reading, gaming and tech. Really, really huge range of projects. Microgrants has also allowed libraries to really consolidate those relationships that they have with partners and to build engagement with new networks locally, as well as widening engagement with local communities. And a key takeaway here is that microgrants have reinforced what we already know, that inclusivity and diversity is happening in our libraries every day, and these projects really do demonstrate that. And finally, some have taken the opportunity with microgrants to develop their own skills around bid writing and project management, but also to further the skills of those emerging library leaders within their library services. And this, of course, is helping to build capacity within libraries and to future-proof that really key development role that libraries have. Okay, so moving on to impact. So we know from seeing the microgrant projects in action and in hearing from the libraries and from Tess and the team at Libraries Connected, we know just how much of a difference this funding has made to communities and to libraries and to library staff. So we're really keen now to delve further into this and to look at the impact that this microgrant programme has collectively with other small grant programmes for libraries that Arts Council has supported over the past few years. So this includes the Green Libraries grants in 2022, the Europe Challenge grants from last year, and the Library On funding as well from 2023. So to do this, we're working with an independent evaluator to bring together the impact of all of these programmes. And we're going to look at a broad range of factors and impacts, including have small grants led on to other funding, which we've heard today they have. Has learning been embedded into library services? If so, how? And following on from receiving a small grant, have projects been scaled up and further developed? And in doing this, we'll really be able to demonstrate the impact on libraries that this type of funding has. And we'll also be able to identify gaps and future areas for development that might inform our thinking around this. So as I said, this evaluation is currently underway, and once completed, we will publish that report for you all to see. So very quickly, in terms of next steps that you might want to consider after microgrant is a National Lottery project grant, as I'm sure you've all heard of these. So this funding programme at Arts Council supports a broad range of high quality creative and cultural projects that benefit people living in England. Applications can be between £1,000 to over £100,000, and projects can last up to 3 years. Public libraries can apply for this funding to deliver a project that focuses on any of the 4 universal library offers. So not only culture and creativity, but also reading, health and well-being, and digital and information. And the Universal Library Offer projects and libraries are currently a time-limited priority for Arts Council. So please do take a look at them. As some of you may have heard, we have experienced some issues around Grantium, our grant management system, over recent months. We're currently using alternative online systems to explore and support you in making your application. But just to reassure you, all questions within the project grant application remains the same, and full guidance is on our website to support you. So please do take a look. And it would be really great to see some projects being funded as a follow-on from the microgrant funding. Finally, we love hearing about all the work that you're doing, so please do keep in touch with us on that email there. Share news of your microgrants or any other projects that you're doing. And if you have any questions about project grants, please do get in touch with your library's relationship manager. Thank you.
Thank you, Alison. There is a question, actually. Are you looking for any particular types of projects, any themes in particular?
To hear about the projects?
For funding, I believe.
Oh, for the National Lottery project grants?
Yeah.
Yeah, as long as they fall under one of the 4 universal library offers, it's open for a broad range of ideas.
So, thank you. Were there any other questions? Feel free to put your hand up if you have a question, or pop it in the chat. If not, then just to say thank you so much for joining us today, and thank you to the speakers for the amazing presentations. Yeah, I, like you, Alison, I feel like I've been on a journey, and I was just fully on the bus. Really enjoyed it. So thank you so much for sharing. Really inspiring. And thank you everyone for joining us.